This is actually our second new leadership style discussions. We had this discussion last year, and it was super popular, and we want to continue because I think everybody got a lot out of this. So what I'm going to moderate today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start by giving a little context to everybody here tonight of what we mean by new leadership styles. And then we're going to get the panel in. I'm going to introduce the panel. We're going to get the panel in, and I'm going to discuss like new leadership styles. But unlike last year when we did this, people suggested that we put the cultural angle in that. And by cultural, we mean like people from like different disciplines, different backgrounds, even different cultures, different countries. Some of the panelists are moms, some of the panelists are not. So just kind of a very diverse array, so we can discuss whether these things also influence on the way you lead, if it makes it different or not. So just to give you guys a little bit of context, I don't know if you can see here, but I want to do a little kind of a quick poll. If I ask you from all of those, which one you think is the most important trait of a leader, what do you guys would say? Generous? Anything else? Confidence? Which one? Focused. Any others? Resilient. Yeah, you know what is really interesting? Confident is the one that most people say, and resilient also quite a bit. And actually generous, people don't say a lot, or humble even. And this is what we mean by status quo leadership style traits, and a lot of new literature out there that says there is a new way of leading. So if you look at this column here on the left, this is kind of a little bit of like what most people in the status quo thinks a leader should be. And if you think about the column on the right, this is the column that says that this is kind of what the new leader should be. But this is not a thing where we're going to go like, last time we discussed if one was more feminine and masculine, but we all agreed that night that actually that we shouldn't divide it by gender. What we should know is that there are traits A and traits B. And actually, maybe the ultimate thing is that there is actually a mix of both. So good leaders perhaps have the traits from column A mixed with traits from column B. So this is just to give you guys a little bit of context and when we say new styles of leadership, what we mean. So literature says that nothing empowers there are three big principles, and one is like, it's not about you telling your team what to do, it's empowering your team for them to be able to do what they want to do. In a way, it's like what mothers and fathers want for their sons and daughters. Like you want them to be better than you. It's not like hiring someone that is lower than you, but hiring someone that is better than you. So that is kind of one idea. The other one is like active listening. It's actually really difficult. It's really difficult. Sometimes when we do leadership courses, we do this exercise to see how good you are at listening. Most people gather about 20% of what the other person just said, or less. And the other kind of interesting thing is like humans value more time than value time more than anything else. So one really interesting example of that is if you're gonna like praise people, say you're a manager and you wanna praise people, instead of like emailing them, good job, or emoji and like on Slack, you go and tell them, right? Because people value time more than they value anything else. So the other one is kind of quite interesting. It's a topic that we focus a lot on. SheSays is like practice active mentoring, and even mentoring is a word to be questioned. Like people always say investorship, because sometimes if you're a mentor to someone, you're just kind of listening and you're not actually actively invested in that person's success. So what does that really mean? Like, how are you accountable for the success of your mentors or your team, your mentee or your team? And adaptive means that there is no, if there is no one silver bullet tip that you can always give to people that you manage or your mentees. People are going to grow differently. And you have to understand people before you give them advice. You have to understand things like their cultural background, whether they're an introvert, an extrovert. And you even need to understand where they are in their careers. Are they in the beginning of their careers, middle, top? Based on the calibration of those 3 points, then you can kind of, as a leader, then you can give them advice. Because the advice that you give to an introvert that is from a different cultural background and is in the middle of their career is completely different than an advice that you give for someone starting that is an extrovert. So these are the things that managers have to be very good at calibration, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today. This is the principles to kind of give you like a little bit of context. So I talked a lot, and I would like you guys to participate. So I think I'm going to do some questions in the beginning. And then I'm going to stop and see if you guys have any questions, and I'm going to do more questions to the panel and stop if you have any questions rather than questions at the end, because I think it's more interesting that way. But today, I want to get my lovely panel here. I know all these women, amazing women really well. Some of them spoke, as she says, already. So Andreza is a partner at Bossa Digital. So Andreza, come on over. And then we have Helene Alonso. She's Director of Digital Experiences at the Natural History Museum. And then we got Heather, who is a managing director at the Mail, and Ozioma, who is also a SheSays speaker, second timer, is a chief transformation officer at BurnBright. So I wanted to ask you guys to sit with me here, Dre. LA, do you want to be on this sofa too?
Wherever you want me.
Yeah, come this side. Let's snuggle here. And I'm gonna start asking all of you guys, like, if you will have to only pick one. For you, what is the most important trait of a leader and why? You can start, Dre.
Generosity.
And why?
Because when you're really generous and you have to, you're talking about listening and listening and actually being aware of the background of the person. If your generosity is not just like giving your time, but it's giving time with quality. Mm-hmm. And if you're a good manager, you are able to, when you're giving an advice or you're mentoring your team, you give time with quality. You stop to think about that person and not just rush through like, oh, you do this, you do that, or like, so you actually spend time with each person that you work with.
Right. Can anybody hear okay? Good. Okay. Okay, so LA.
Do I have to pick from that list?
No.
Okay. Because through my years in management, what I find most important to lead is excitement. Because excitement, when I get excited about things, I inspire others, I energize others. The happiness and the positive thinking of getting excited make things like happy and smooth, and it motivates people. And when I get excited, people feel appreciated as well. You know, I get excited about not only my stuff, I get excited about what I see, no matter who's doing it. So that excitement is contagious. Mm-hmm. And I think that energy is what you need to move forward and to pursue things and to make change. You need energy. And the motivation of excitement, I think, is what provokes that change. So excitement is mine.
There is a speaker. Ozioma can go. Yeah.
I would say being a visionary. You know, I think that in order for you to be a leader, you have to have a vision of a desired reality. And our ability to create that reality is and it's depending on how robust and how magical and how inspiring that vision is, that is what excites and invites people to take that journey with you. And I think a lot of times leaders don't do their due diligence of sharing the power of vision and really making sure that everyone in the organization or everyone who's brought to participate in going somewhere, that they truly get it, that they truly feel it. And I just think we can never discount the importance of being visionary.
Which I think it links with excitement a little bit. I think they kind of interlinked, right? And by the way, that there might be the bell and not like that you have to stop speaking. It's not the Oscars, you know, like I have a speech. Heather, what is your POV?
Probably a combination of those, in that I think visionary, I was thinking clarity. in terms of being able, we don't know all the answers, but being clear in where we're going and what we're trying to do. And I think that probably is visionary, that's excitement. But the flip side of that to me is incredibly important, is having an interest and an understanding of what you're trying to do, an interest in the people, a care about what the people are doing, and how to then craft that and support the vision of where you're trying to go. So I think it can't be one way. To me, leaders are sort of two ways, which is one outward, what are we trying to do? And inward, how do I understand what we're doing and bring you along?
Mm-hmm. But just to kind of jump on that, we were talking about over there just before we started that like some leaders are actually like, how about is there a way for a leader to be a little bit more like vulnerable in the sense that I don't know? Like, I don't know where we're going, but people still believe in you. Do you think that is possible?
Yeah, totally.
Completely, and I think now, I mean, in thinking of styles, and maybe in the past you had to be a big, powerful guy with all the answers, but that's not who I am, and that's not the way I lead. I lead by understanding the most intelligent people in our business that we hire and allowing them to actually do that and trusting that they do that. And I said, I just had this conversation today with my CCO. I said, I actually don't know where we're going with this. Talk to me about it and we'll figure out where to go. But I don't, it was a weakness in the past and I don't believe it's a weakness anymore. Some people might believe it, but I think that's part of growing and moving forward and bringing people along.
And how do you balance that with having a vision?
I think that wherever you go is not a point, it's a range, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you bring smart people, you allow them to change your vision, to improve it, right? So you are the one that is moving kind of that way instead of this way, but between the entire team, you are moving forward together. Mm-hmm. And wherever you go I have allowed my team to completely change a project because their idea is better than the idea I had. My vision was to do the best things for our audience, and we achieved it because they had a better idea than I had. But we achieved it. And when my role as leader wasn't to be the only one having the vision, was for me to identify what was the best idea and to foster that idea into a reality, mm-hmm. To make it happen. It's like, wow, that's great, let's move it forward. Instead mm-hmm. of like, oh, that's not my idea, let's put it aside.
So a vision is more like the why that brings people together rather than we're gonna do this on year 1 and this on year 5, right?
Yeah,
I think it's
what
you
goals.
guys are saying. Yeah.
I also think we live in a very different world right now in terms of the way in which business is conducted. I think there's an acknowledgement that everything is interdisciplinary, that there are so many different stakeholders, and the way in which things come to life revolves around and involves having so many more people in everything we do, that notion of like the singular leader or the person who knows it all or has it all figured out, I feel like that's dying. And what's emerging is someone who's able to hold a vision, someone who's able to, see the gifts of other people and kind of help those gifts dance together to kind of chart the unknown, like similar like, Star Trek or something.
So I'm gonna try and get some like secrets from you guys. You guys had amazing careers and got where you are in different ways, right? So could you tell me like one great thing that you did as a leader and one great thing that did not work out? Who wants to start on that one?
I think a great thing that I did as a leader was to hire the best people. Like that is the best thing. Like I read once that your team is your helium, mm-hmm. and it's true. It's like I cannot alone lift the weight of my vision. I need all those creative minds and all the talent, all those skills between. What I do is big. It requires a lot of people. So having the best people and selecting them really well has created a sort of family in the room. Like we joke in terrible ways, like HR would be surprised. Wouldn't be very happy.
Any HR in the room?
No. We call each other things and is fun, is creative. So brainstormings are like, you separate, you get an hour and a half for a brainstorming, it's 3 hours, and we're still going, and it's fun, and it's because of the people. Mistakes, I had to think about it because I never made mistakes. No, really, honestly, mistakes maybe being naive. Let's say when you lead, you don't lead a team. You lead different groups of people. So I lead my team, but then I have to work with my peers, and I also have to manage up. And with each one of them, I have to be a different kind of person. If I treated the ops as I joke with my team, I wouldn't get far.
Right.
So
did that happen?
when
in
I
real
was
life?
younger,
Yeah.
I was more about being myself, right? Sorry, I don't mean to to make anyone sad about losing your own self, but truth is that when you have to manage up, you have to be very careful with what you say, and you have to understand your crowd and manipulate them. Sorry to say this too, but you have to know that that one is going to play against that one. So if you sell to this one, that one's going to say yes. And so you have to play these kind of things. And when I was younger, I was like, well, here I am with my great project, and I'm sure you're going to love it. And that way of being super enthusiastic and naive, I have to say it.
Didn't help.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
didn't help at
With
all.
the app.
With the up.
Right. Interesting.
Right. So in a way, we were just talking about this before. Is having different personas to sell to different people, unauthentic, unreal. Are you say that treason to yourself? How you call that? Betraying. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you betraying yourself? Kind of, but not necessarily if you win the game, right? You're just playing chess. So to me, maturing that side of me and becoming a player was a painful path, but became very, very useful. So I would say, don't make the mistake of going out feeling that because you're a cute girl or guy with a great idea, you're going to sell it. That's not what, not necessarily.
Ozioma, can I hear from you? Go on, mistakes. No, I'm joking.
No, I'll speak about the, I guess what we could call a mistake. For me, I think the biggest thing is, or the misperception rather than mistake, because usually it's about misperception. I would say patience, I think we underestimate how long it takes for things to change. And when you're working within the agency or even in a client, like maybe you have 24 months of being in one role or whatever, and then you're moving on. And so people are very focused about making impact immediately, changing the game immediately. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that things take time. We live in and we work in a fast-paced world, but things take time. And so I think the biggest shift on the opposite side that I learned as a leader is that rather than thinking of my role in whenever I work multiple, in the agency, on the other side, United Nations, different types of leadership. But what I've learned is rather than seeing my role as leader as the winner takes all, to see and to explore what's my contribution during the tenure that I am leading this project. And I think that shift changed everything. Because it allowed me to see a larger context of what I was up to and the larger context of what we're up to, and it changed everything. And it also made it more enjoyable and less pressure, because we're here to advance a conversation. We're here to move an industry forward. We're here to move a campaign forward. And if we think of it from that kind of playing our role for as long as we can to the best of our ability, that to me was the greatest shift in perception that I made as a leader.
Go for it.
Interesting. I guess the mistake and the learning for me was that I probably spent a long time trying to be a type of leader that we thought we should be. So whether the left side or whatever it was, sort of type A and master of the universe, and you have all the answers and powerful and don't listen to other things people said. And I wasn't that bad, but I feel like I tried to fulfill what people thought a leader was for a while. And then I don't know if I had an epiphany or not, but whatever it was, I finally said, I just actually have to be who I am. And who I am is quite different than that. And it is, empathetic. I listen to people. I want to engage people. I'm actually the same to everybody. But that to me, that point is that there is no one right kind of leadership. I think you pick the right leadership for you and for the situation you're in. And I was able to, I had a while in agencies where it was great, but it was also very challenging. I was with very narcissistic leaders alongside me, which didn't fit that well. Doesn't fit well with probably many people. But I think picking the place where I could be a good leader, which is where I feel I am right now, which is I can be a good leader, recognizing the people I'm with, and then also just being who I am. Yes, you have to adjust for situations, reporting up, talking to different people. We all have to do that. But I think feeling very comfortable with who you are and how you approach the people you work with and what you want to do, to me, was the biggest change. And I think the big mistake was trying to be something else. And so when you finally come around to that, and I think I've also lived through, probably older than all of you people, lived through all of the eras of a very male-dominated world of leadership and management and agencies. My first job, I was in a law firm. A lawyer threw a chair at me, and I felt bad about it. I'm like, that's weird. That's no kind of leadership. He missed, by the way. But the problem was, I told him he missed. And I went straight to HR, and I said, you're going to fire me because he threw a chair, and I told him he missed. And they're like, no, don't worry about it. It's okay. But anyway, I think the point being, I've come from that world to the world where it's actually okay to be any way that you want to be, as long as you're taking care of people and setting the vision and helping people realize the vision. So.
For me, the biggest mistake is similar to Heather. It's in the past, I tried to be that leader that is like perfect, knows it all, and then try to change yourself, your way of doing things to adapt to what people expect of you. So try to please and try to fulfill certain expectations that, yes, maybe it is the vision of the company, but then you have to be honest with yourself. Do you share the same vision? And I think a lot of when you're a leader, you have always to ask yourself, what is your goal? Are you in this for a passion or something that you're really excited? So you're excited about the process and the doing the thing, or you have a career path in your mind and you want to be a big guy, a big girl, a big guy in that, and it's about the position. And for me, it was never about the position, but I was playing that game, and even without knowing that I was doing that. So for me, that was the mistake, and was one day I realized I was super unhappy. I was getting sick because you cannot change yourself and not have any consequences. It's not good for your own core. So I decided that I'm going to be myself, and if the person or the company doesn't like, so it's not a good fit for me. Mm-hmm. But because I'm in this for the passion I have for the creative process and not for a career path necessarily.
Right.
But I think the good thing, one of the good things that I've done in the past that I'm really proud of is when I created Bossa. One of the first brainstorm sessions, I called everybody to participate, my partner, the EP, the producers, everyone. And it's we all gonna contribute with an idea. And then I remember Hans, my partner, who was no, but I'm not a creative. I don't know how to do this. It's everybody's a creative. And in the end, after 5 years, everybody in the team, doesn't matter the function, we all sit together to brainstorm and give ideas because everybody can have good ideas.
Mm-hmm. So I want to clarify something for the audience then. So it seems like you're saying sometimes you have to adapt to be able to do certain things, and these guys are saying, well, you have to be yourself. So how do we manage that?
I see the contrast between what they're saying. So there are two potential things. Maybe you guys are more proper, so being yourself matches the feel. I am naturally goofy, and I'm Latin. And well, you too. So I'm Latin. That makes me goofy, friendly. I make friends in seconds. We become familiar very easily. And we make jokes, and I don't, but in Spanish, in like Latin Americans, we make jokes that always have two ways of interpreting them. So one is funny in a way, but the other one is sexual almost all the time. So it is like completely inappropriate, right? So that is not welcome here.
You learned that the hard way, LA?
So let me say, I work in museums, right? Museums are places of cathedrals of knowledge, right? And you deal every day with PhDs that have published 1 million books and have awards, and they go to the TED Talks, and they are like very fancy in their ways. They're highly competitive as well. And the people that work in the administrations are the people that deal with millionaires, and they get millions of dollars in donations. So it is a very serious business. And when you are in the museum environment, there is so much to do, and there is so much stress, and that people, I think, lose a little bit their sense of humor, right? So there is no time for a stupid joke. Just like go to the point, right? Mm-hmm. So in a way,
it's kind of dependent on the actual environment.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I was listening to you, and you made your own agency, right? It's like, well, if you made your own agency, you can be whatever you want to be. It's your own, right? It's yours, right? You hire the people that matches your vision. I hire the people that match my vision too, in my team, and that's why I can be most myself, or one side of myself. Do you think that I'm not competitive, serious, and bitchy? I enjoy that too. And I can be that in this other environment, right? So I think that we are all, like some mornings I wake up wanting to wear sneakers and my pajamas to work, and another day I want to be, a fancy lady with high heels, and some days I want to be a bitch, and some other days I want to be a creative, wonderful mentor. So it's like, I think that it gives you leadership when you have an environment that is rich in different audiences, gives you the opportunity to foster each one of those sides of you. And I enjoy that.
How are you guys feeling so far? Is there anybody kind of have burning questions that they want to? Yay, go for it, go for it, go for it. Do we need a mic over there, or shall I repeat the question?
Where are you from?
I am from Venezuela.
Oh, Venezuela.
Venezuela, yeah. Where are you from?
Argentina.
Argentina. Did you find reflected in what I was saying? Yeah.
Right, so Venezuela and Argentina are agreeing in the house tonight.
I also think we're speaking about something that is very important in terms of, how much of our true selves do we bring to the work that we do. And so you could have that conversation about being a Latina, but women of African descent have their own cultural codes. Women who maybe you grew up in a low income household, and so there's always some kind of overarching kind of culture that is present in the work environment. And then you have the opportunity or the challenge of kind of questioning who do I bring to bear in this environment? And how much of myself am I willing to give up in order to enter there? And so that, to me, is what's really interesting, right? And there's a lot of environments that are not very welcoming of different types of people, and you can't always force those environments to welcome you. I remember when I first started, I was a producer. I've had many different roles, but I was a 21, 22-year-old producer at Saatchi & Saatchi. And that was like my first job out of grad school. And it was a very different kind of environment, And there were certain ways in which I was read that were not me, and certain things that were put upon me that was not my reality. And every day, and again, it became a piece of how much power really do I have to represent what I truly believe in, who I am, and stand in the face of that. And what I have found is that when you stand for that, other people will modify to embrace you, And I just think it's really important that we do kind of bring that into this conversation, because especially as women, how much of our sexiness do we bring? How much of our humor do we bring? How much of our background do we bring? And do we feel safe to be all that we are or not? And if we don't, then maybe we go elsewhere. So yeah, it's really important conversation.
So Heather, I'm assuming, like, as a managing director for the Mill has, like, it's a global company, right? You have offices in different places. How do you manage all this that Ozioma and Andreza and Helene were talking about. How do you manage the fact that we all come from different cultures, that we all read differently? Like how do you get all these people to work together, like towards a vision? Yeah. Like is that, yeah.
I think going back to the first point, which is clarity in terms of what we're trying to do as a company. So I think there's a vision around which people rally fundamentally, which is to create the absolute best moving image product with our clients, with our partners possible. That is the single number one thing that drives everyone. And it doesn't matter who you are. And I think that is it's a unifying factor across London, New York, Chicago, LA. And you asked us the question, like, how are the management, so I have a peer in each one of the offices, and you said, how is the management style different from each of us? And we're completely different, but also when I joined, I was the first woman leader, the first American woman leader, and there was one other first, but I can't remember. I've forgotten already because it's not first anymore, but I still am the only woman in the board and anything else. So, I came into a British laddie culture, which I actually find quite funny and fun, so it didn't bother me, and you could be pissed off about it, but I thought it was funny. And as long as you can laugh at it, it's fine if you don't take it too seriously. LA, they're completely different. They're kind of optimistic and like, ooh, everything's going to be fine. And Chicago is completely different in that they're very sort of like all in the family and we'll get it done in due time. And then I looked and I reflected on ourselves and I thought New York has a culture too, which I realized behind our back they're all talking about us, which is like, we got to get it done. We got to get it done now. Hurry fast or the boat is going to leave. And they laugh so hard that Chicago's like, don't worry, it's all good. But I think the point is that, again, to me, this all feels like bringing who you are to the party. And I think it's hard to do that. You have to rally around something in common. And it doesn't have to be race or sex or anything else, but there has to be something that you all share, why you're at the table together to make a company function and move forward. And to me, that's the clarity of purpose that we have, which is no matter who you are, we have tons of introverts who never want to talk to a client and sit behind a computer, and that's okay, because they're doing exactly what they need to be doing and exactly what they love. So my job is to make sure they're able to do that. I am the essential empowerer, and then I get out of the way. And I think that's the point. I love you have to like multi-culti things. I mean, if you don't, then don't work at a company like that. I personally I find it boring if it's all American, or all anything else probably. It's really fun to have different cultures because that's something, but again, it's a personal thing. So my point to anyone who's leading or choosing an organization is you find what you enjoy. And I think that's it. And I think that all the management styles are interesting, challenging. We all criticize each other behind our backs like, oh, LA, they have no idea what's going on. But we'll figure it out because we're in New York and we're going to get it done. But again, I think it's just bringing that together. And I'm going to a meeting in 2 weeks, which is everyone gets together at the top management group. And it is a funny group of people. Again, I'm the only woman still, which is frustrating. But I'm there. So that's okay. Did that answer the question?
Yes. I'm just curious because I think the kind of the big cities are different. But it seems like the world is going that way. We're all going to have to work together with different people from different cultures anyways. Does anybody in this room feel that their company is not that way? Anybody? Good. Okay. So you feel like there is a pretty good mix on where everybody is working. Okay, interesting. We'd like to kind of do a debate after this, like how you're finding this and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing and what are the kind of roadblocks. But do you guys want to contribute? Or because I have 50 questions. Okay, go for it.
I think one of the hardest things as leaders is crisis and conflict management. And so how do you deal with crisis and conflict management, especially related to mistakes that you potentially made?
I think Ozioma could be quite good at that. Do you want to take that one? because what you said, you work with clients, you work with like the UN, or you work with like agencies. So any conflict management tips for the audience?
Yeah, there's so much that I could say on multiple levels, but we're talking really about the agency, industry, client context, right?
We could do agency. Should we do agency?
Like, is that the
Okay.
the context? 'Cause I
Okay.
can talk about like community ground level conflict as well, in terms of mayors and all that. So we'll talk about. I think again, I feel like the common theme that keeps coming up is misperception, right? We assume that conflict shouldn't happen, right? We assume that the crisis shouldn't happen. And when it does, we're like, whoa, what do we do with this? This shouldn't be. And I think the biggest shift is accepting that in the process of working with human beings and making things happen, there will be times of crisis. She's nodding. There will be times of conflict. They're nodding. And I think the biggest piece is to always think about, again, what she was saying, the clarity of purpose, right? What are we really here to do? What's that bigger picture? What's that bigger mission? And a lot of times when we get into areas of crisis or conflict is because we've forgotten what we're really here to do. And so I find that the biggest way to bring us back to ground zero and to common ground is to align and say, wait, what is our bigger purpose here? And then a lot of times it comes down to ego. I'll just say it, you know? Everyone's like, yeah, because a lot of times our egos are so involved, right? And or we don't like what this person did, or we don't like what that person did, or I'm afraid because I did this that now there's gonna be some kind of retribution that happens because I didn't think about it right, or I didn't say the right word. But I think the biggest piece is, first and foremost, being able to get back on purpose, right? And really realizing what we're here to do. Second tip is always take the egos out, right? And really kind of get back and say, you know, what I've learned biggest in terms of conflict resolution and crisis resolution is to always approach things from a strengths-based perspective. Really about how can we be better? What could we have thought differently that would have taken things to the next level, as opposed to looking for someone to blame and looking for what's wrong, looking to blame someone. And I think the more that we transform our cultures and transform the work that we do to really come from like an appreciative inquiry, strengths-based perspective, then conflicts will be just opportunities for us to converse, right? And we will shift our dynamics, and then by doing so, we'll also shift our results.
Mm-hmm. I like it. So the way forward for conflict management is to have conflict. But it's just the way we look at it as a you know, it's not a personal thing. It's like it's an opportunity for us to learn.
And also, is it really a conflict? Because when I think about even my own journey, there's a lot of things that were so urgent, kind of like what you were saying. We have to do it now. Oh my God, if we don't send it out by 5 p.m. It's like sometimes we're creating it. So I think there's also that like other distinction, right? Of, is this truly a moment of crisis and conflict? And what can we do, or what can we say, or how can we shift the way we're looking at it to release that tense moment, that tension? Because a lot of times it's what we're putting on it. Either the meaning we're putting on it, the tension we're putting on it, the ego we're putting on it. And so I think that is also a big thing to say, wait a minute, is this really as urgent or as intense or really an opportunity or a situation of conflict, or is it just the way that we're looking at it? And how can we look at it differently?
Yeah, cool.
I would add one thing on that. I think as leaders, if that's the sort of topic, I think there's nothing more important than admitting mistakes, because there's no way to go forward if you just go as him or her or whatever. So I'm constantly admitting mistakes. But I think also then not making people feel bad for it, but we're trying to do something bigger. There's a guy who made a huge mistake and talked about a client in the elevator in front of another, it was just all bad. And he felt horrible.
Sounds like
and he
it.
came to me and said, are you going to fire him? And I said, shit happens, you'll never do it again, ever. I'm sure of that. And I know that's not that level of conflict, but I think admitting mistakes, letting other people make mistakes, and acknowledging it as a leader, I guess that was a big enlightenment my sister said to me once, which is everyone's going to make mistakes, so figure out what you're going to do with it. And I think that I couldn't agree more. I just think as leaders we have to model it and do it and acknowledge our mistakes on a constant basis and bring people in, and also not I don't believe in lambasting people, because what's the point? Where are you going to go? If you really think the person's a good person and that there is a conflict or a mistake, you go, okay, it happened, how are we going to solve this? And make them part of the solution as well, because I think that helps them feel better.
Yeah, I think what they said, and it's you have to have equanimity and not be afraid of being vulnerable, because you're gonna make a mistake, your team is gonna make a mistake, but then when that happens, you come together and not blaming people, but you can have a step back and it's like, okay, so how do we solve this together? And then it's a better way to navigate than it's like, oh my God, oh, we have a problem. It's like, who did this and who did that? And like, it's not gonna get anywhere.
Right.
May I add something?
That question got you guys going, right? Thank you.
Good question. So I agree with all of you in the mistakes and how to manage that. I think that I only call a conflict when it has emotional implications between the parties, right? If it's a discussion about ideas, we can resolve it, we can debate it, we can land on something. When the emotions of people are involved and then you get people upset about things or fighting or taking it personal or making it a special battle or special mission to win a debate or something like that, then is when I consider that a crisis. And I think that you need to understand what each part wants and what is making people upset and what are they not getting out of the proposed scenario, whatever, that is creating the crisis. And you need some large degree of empathy for each one of the members, including like if the conflict is with you, like to understand why the other person is so upset about it, or even why the other person is trying to push you down. Why is the other person trying to win the battle by being nasty to you or to somebody else and you can intervene in a way, right? So the large degree of empathy towards each one of the parts will allow you to negotiate a point that makes everybody happy and to also calm down the spirits a little bit, manage the human side of the equation, I think.
So let me stay with you two because you guys are from the creative side. What do you, Andreza, you talked a little bit about this, the fact that you think that everybody can have ideas, not just creatives. So what else do you do to inspire your teams? Like if you're going to tell these, if anybody in this room kind of has a team of creatives, what would you say? What do you do to inspire your teams?
I'm very passionate about creative process in general, and it's part of my life, so I try to share that with them. So when I engage with people that work with me, it's not just about the work, but it's about like things, personal projects I'm doing on the side or things that I saw.
I see.
And then, and I ask for opinions, I openly share, so it's not like, oh, this is mine, and it's like, okay, I'm showing to you, but don't say anything, or like I have all the answers. I think it ties back to everything we've been talking about, but I remember like one of the agencies that I worked, I was already a manager, and I'm a fine artist as well, so I was putting together a show, and I was doing a very complex installation, and I needed to talk to someone to figure out, and then I shared with the team that I was working with, and they helped me a lot, so it became part of the process. Every time I had an idea, like I was like, oh, do you think this is crazy? I'm thinking about this and that. And sometimes they would talk me out of like some crazy stuff, like, are you insane of doing this? But it's just like, be open.
Interesting. So kind of bringing people into, if it's, for some people we might work super well, into kind of your personal projects and inspirations. How about you?
For me, I do the same, like we look at exhibitions and art and publications, stuff like that to inspire ourselves. But I think to make the most creative team, to extract the best ideas from us, we have to be super comfortable with each other. So for me, the key of the creativity within my team is highly dependent on the familiar environment that I have created with them. So when we have brainstormings, and brainstormings are not only a session where we sit around a table and have ideas, it's about sitting next to each other, looking at a computer, and then we start having these ideas, and the project starts flying on its own. It depends on our capacity to expose our less creative side and the less smart side, and just shoot things that are maybe not fantastic, not original, not nothing, and then suddenly something amazing happens, and everybody starts playing ping pong with that idea. So it's about confidence in your peers.
Mm-hmm. So as a creative, to inspire your teams, you can kind of you can show perhaps some facets of you that are not that confident, or is it more about everybody trusting each other, like trust as a form of inspiration? Is that what you mean?
Trust to feel comfortable failing.
Okay, right. Okay. That as a form of inspiration. That's interesting. I haven't heard that one
Yes,
before.
because like when you, I mean, not everything that comes out of my mouth is a great idea. Like I put out bad ideas too, and everybody was like, nah, next. And I don't feel embarrassed by showing anything bad. It's like, okay, fine, I'm not judging anyone either. So we are not judging. We are just like, just waiting there, shooting things until something marvelous happens, and then we all jump to foster that, right? And that at the same time, like, an idea comes into something like me, and then between all of us, we make it into something beautiful to a degree that we don't even know whose idea that was. And that happens because we trust each other. I have brainstormings at different levels, right? So I have brainstormings with my team, and there is where we create the best. I have brainstormings with my peers, and some days, if we are in good mood, we create good things. Some days, if we're in bad mood, or we thought about something else, or your budget is bigger than my budget, or stuff like that, then sometimes the brainstormings are not as productive. And with the high ends, it's not brainstorming. They're just telling me what they want me to do. Right? So, in a way, I wouldn't go in the same spirits with my C-level client, in a way, and put out a bad idea because I will immediately be judged. Right? With my team, I don't have that problem. So the best ideas happen in the environments where there is more confidence.
Right. Anything from the audience? Anybody's kind of...
I have a question.
Okay, great.
I really didn't want to be the second guy in a row.
No, but I think that's great. I think that's great.
I work in a very small agency. We're 24 strong, and 21 of those are women. I'm one of three guys. I'm not complaining. I never had a better job.
Do you guys work together? No.
But my question is, like, in our interaction with clients, I'm seeing more and more women in leadership positions. So I'm sitting across more and more women. I like that, but I still see them speaking louder and trying to bring across their voice in a more powerful way over their male counterparts at the big corporate companies that we work for. And, you know, I guess what I'm trying to ask is some guidance as to what can I do to make them feel more comfortable as opposed to trying to shout louder just so that they can reach their potential, you know, or bring on more creativity, because right now they're just standing across the boardroom table, you know, trying to speak louder. Am I making sense?
Yeah?
I'm
Who
just
is
going to
trying
say
to
one
speak
thing.
louder? The women.
The women.
Okay.
Yeah, they tend to speak louder as opposed to being, you know, just doing
Right.
their job in a creative way.
Uh-huh.
So what can I do as a service provider to make them more comfortable? You know?
I was only going to say one thing, which was that you can share with them a trick. Uli Wiesendanger was the W of TBWA. And he always said, I don't know these women, so I don't know the answer to that, but he always said, if you want people to pay attention, you whisper. So when he presented, he would say, and the idea that's going to tell everybody what the future of tennis balls is, very yellow tennis balls. And he would say it very quiet, and everybody leaned in. And they all listened to whatever Uli said. I have no idea sometimes what he said, but everyone's like, bravo, brilliant. But I guess the point is maybe it's a new technique. I don't know the answer, but I thought that's a story you could share with them.
But I think to add to that, I think that's why we are here. You know, I think it may be the place where this is happening is because there's potentially just a one-sided way of looking at leadership still. And I think one thing that you could do is, you know, one thing that everybody in your company could do is show different sides as well. You know, so the more we kind of talk about it, the more we expose different ways of leading, different ways of bringing stuff to the table, whispering, talking loud. These are all valid, you know, and they all need to be recognized. We should be kind of keep talking about this until it sticks, because I don't know, maybe it's sticking, maybe it's not. Anything else from you guys? Okay, go for it.
How did you know you wanted to be leaders? Because there are people who want to climb up the ladder and are really skilled, but are not good leaders at all. But they have to move up because their skills show that. How did you know that you wanted to be a leader and it wasn't just your work, but how did you know?
And should we add, the question is, how did you know that you wanted to be a leader? And is there a little bit of this question that, like, what if you don't?
Right.
Is that also great,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Who wants to take that?
I can start. I always had an idea that I wanted to pursue, and I needed help for it. So I had the vision, like when we were saying, what you need vision and you need clarity. I had this vision, I knew what I needed to do it, but I couldn't do it alone. So I always gathered the resources, the people, whatever I could, get myself into the position to pursue those ideas, those visions that I had. So I think it's born with a vision.
For me, I was actually a very reluctant leader. I did not want to be a leader. I was one of those people, everyone's like, you're a leader. I'm like, no, not really. I just kind of want to be here alone, writing in my book. And then I would say something, wait, we want to follow you. And you're like, no, you don't, but sure. And then they like the results. And so for me, it really was about accepting that there's something inside of me that can help people, can help businesses, can help communities get to a desired result. And so more than it being about, I knew I wanted to be a leader, it became about, by me stepping into and fully embracing these leadership faculties and capacities, look what becomes possible in this reality. Look what becomes possible for this world, for this business, for this community. And so once I started to realize that it was kind of like a responsibility, then I said, okay, I gotta really get better at this. And then it became about studying and really embracing it and learning about what are some of the, the negative as well as positive traits and qualities and how do you enhance it. But I think at some point you start to realize that being a leader, while for some people they're like, oh my God, that would be great. I'll have all the power and all the this and all the that. You start to realize it's not really about that. It's not about that. It truly is about something more and deeper. And when you step into the realm of leadership, what becomes possible is transformation. And so I really believe that, it became something that was an opportunity that I stepped into, and then I realized that it was a necessity for me to be it and continue being it.
And there's a couple of questions from that side. All right, so the question is, how do we do it? Because we're talking about conflict management. So how do you manage conflicts and crisis up? Right, so in a way, like, are you saying, like, if the crisis is within your bosses or your leaders? Any tips for that, ladies?
I don't know if I have exactly the answer to that, as I say often. But the one thing someone taught me a long time ago, which was actually a really good lesson, which is share bad news early and good news later. So I assume you're already in the crisis, but to not be in the crisis, I think people often hold on to bad news and they don't want to tell their bosses or their superiors because they're like, I'll fix it, I'll fix it, I'll fix it. But it turns out you're much better off going and saying, I'm seeing this thing happening and it's not feeling good to me. I'm going to try and correct it, but I want you to know now. So I guess that's probably before the question you just asked, but I think it was a useful piece of advice somebody gave me once upon a time. I guess it's sort of, I feel like it's kind of like facts and the situation. This is happening. These are the facts about what's happening. Here's what we're doing about it. And everyone wants to hear the answer to the boss. Whenever someone comes to me and goes, this isn't going to work, I'm like, okay, and? So you probably want to come with some kind of solution saying, this is the possible damage, but here's what we're doing to mitigate it or something. So I think it's more of a proactive assessment. And I guess just calling a spade, because it feels like calling a spade early would be, I guess, my best advice.
And also, it could be, I've been in a situation where my boss was part of the crisis, and it was exactly that. Like, I had to bring a problem forward to her boss and to the whole team, including her. But you have to do that early, and you have to do it with conviction and honesty, and never gossip, never. Like, if you see there's a problem, don't go to your peer or somebody that, like, it's also freaking out, because that's gonna turn into gossip. And you have to go to people that can change what is happening, and you, of course, you have to come forward with a solution or with something to help manage that situation. But in any situation, never gossip to anyone, because that backfires. That doesn't help.
I was going to just...
Yeah, no, go for it.
I was just going to add to that. A lot of times when a crisis situation happens or conflict arises, it's like, what should we do? What should we do? As opposed to what is needed now. You know, and just that shift in terms of what's really happening, trying to, in terms of supporting, like you were saying, supporting the layer above you, is helping them see the full picture and almost like being able to see what they're not seeing. Because in every single crisis situation, there's like an overriding reality, right? And you might be the person who might be able to see something that other people aren't seeing. And that's a huge gift, especially in a crisis situation. And just asking that question, what is needed now? Not what are we gonna do about it? What is needed now in this moment? And kind of really being able to realize that a lot of times in crisis, where there's an urgency of the moment, but if you're not kind of allowing yourself to take a pause and fully assess all the factors that are in play, so I would say an immediate mapping of the situation, and then asking and contributing what they may not be seeing, because that's the biggest thing that you can offer in terms of managing up, is fresh perspective.
This went really fast, guys. So we're almost out of time. So I'll take one more question really quick. And I think there was someone before, and then we can chat afterwards. So I'm sure you guys are gonna hang out, right? Okay, great. So could you guys your question really quickly? I'm gonna pick on one of you to answer really briefly. It's gonna be like speed question and answer.
Did you repeat the question?
Yes. So what was your question?
Speed question. Do you think that sharing something about you, whether it's you look for what your expectations are or your management style, is positive in a relation with different colleagues and a management skill? And also, second part, when you're dealing with people who might have been in the company that aren't new hires and you're not trying to establish those expectations with, do you find it to be, what do you find to be able to compel them to continue and rise to what's going on in industry standards when they might have kind of, I don't want to say dinosaur, but they don't want change?
So I'm gonna go with the first part of the question, which is, do you communicate your management style to people? Is it helpful to say, my management style is more this side, or my management style is more like this? And I'm gonna do it for you because you're looking at Ozioma when you asked it. So, and then we're gonna go and chat, and then we're gonna find out.
In terms of do I communicate my management style and expectations? I communicate my vision and my expectations. My management style, to me, I mean, I communicate preferences of working, but I also ask, what is your preference for working? I think it definitely is a two-way street. It's not about me just saying what I prefer. It really is about us trying to explore what's the optimal fit. And the best way to communicate your style is by being it.
Oh, that was quick. So we're gonna hang out a little bit. Thank you guys so much for coming. One show for hosting. That was super interesting questions from everybody. Thank you so much.